Alrighty, let's go over today. We're trying something different. Our theme for our lecture today for tomorrow is we're going to talk about public policy, what that is and why that's a goal of politicians. We're going to talk about campaigning in an election, how politicians do that. We're going to talk about interest groups, their role in politics, and political action committees and 527s. We're going to talk about the media's role in politics. And then we finish up a little bit just reviewing the concepts of public opinion or measuring public opinion through polls. Okay. So, before the lecture, let's write these questions down. And we're going to answer these as we go out through the lecture. Again, I'm just trying to help us out. These are things that you want to probably get in the habit of doing. So the first question is, what are the 4 ways that candidates reach the voters? So what are 4 ways in which candidates, again, reach the voters? What was the Bipartisan Campaign Reform Act? What is a 527 committee? What is an interest group, a lobbyist, and a political action committee? Who are electoral specialists, civic specialists, dual activist, and disengaged? And what are the various roles of the media in politics? These are questions that you guys will be able to answer. These aren't very high, when I say very demanding questions, they're not going to get you to think using, high order thinking. But I just want us, for right now, recall and retention, and that's what this is doing. All right, we'll try application in the classroom. Civic engagement, this is something that I think we've struggled with the concept. Civic engagement is like, what's our duty? Our responsibility is to be civically active. And there's 4 types of ways to be active. You have electoral specialists, and these are people that are involved in elections, whether volunteering. Some of you were electoral specialists this week, and you volunteered to help Dan Defoe at City Council for the City Council of Rockland. So you helped him with his campaign. So these are people's main involvement in governance through the election process, voting, working on political campaigns. If you vote, you're an electoral specialist. That's just the minimal there, but you want to get further than that. Then you have civic specialists, and these are people who focus on improving the communities, helping nonprofit organizations and things of this nature. I think we've talked about this before, but civic specialists, think of your community service hours and you're doing democracy. Then you have dual activists. They are both electoral specialists and civic specialists. So they do both of those things. Again, passing out political leaflets, volunteering at a homeless shelter. That's combining doing democracy and your community service hours. That's kind of an example. So that's what that is. And then you have the disengaged, those who don't care, which is, again, the majority of the population when you're talking about different various forms of the public. These are the people that do not vote or pay attention in civic affairs, but have the strongest opinion. They like to tell you what they think, and the system's broken and all this other stuff, but yet they don't vote and they don't do those other things. So these are also the people who the rest, I guess, of society would say that their opinion doesn't matter. If you're not going to do anything about the system, whether you vote independent, Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, Green Party, your own party, but at least you're trying, at least you're saying you care. When these people say, oh, and they give you every excuse in the book, then we don't care what they think about things. Alrighty? So I just want to review civic engagement. And then the goal of any politician, any public official is, with this here, is public policy. So public policy refers to government actions or program designed to achieve certain goals. Again, this is what the interest groups, this is their agenda. This is what they want to influence. Interest groups like to influence public policy. The policy making process, it is that first thing you must do is identify an issue that you want to change, whether that be gun control or something of this nature. That's an example. Then you identify that issue, and then you, again, set the agenda. After 9/11, it says here, terrorism and global warming, interest groups set the agenda, whether that's in local politics or other politics. You want to try to set the agenda. Then you have to figure out a policy. What is the problem? What is the issue? So first you got issue identification, agenda setting. Agenda setting be, we want to stop terrorism. So what's the policy? What is the problem? Well, we want to stop terrorism. You would define that type of terrorism. That's the policy formation part. Then putting agenda into action is the adoption, banning smoking in public areas. So the banning of smoking in public areas would be the adoption of it, because for this problem, the issue is smoking in public areas. Agenda setting, it would be figuring out or stopping smoking in that public area. And then what do you do about the problem with the issue? You want to stop it from being in the public area. You adopt, then it becomes a law. That's what that would be. Implementation is actually implementing it. Now that's a law, then you go around and you make sure that, again, the people are not allowed to smoke in public areas. This is creation of Homeland Security to enact the anti-terrorism policy, going back to the agenda setting, and then all this other stuff. And then you want to see how well that policy works over a period of time, so you evaluate, again, what you adopted. How is the banning on public smoking going? Is it working? Is it a waste of time? Do we need to tighten it? Do we need to make regulations even better? So just things of that nature. Campaigning in an election. This is what politicians do when they're campaigning in an election. So first thing, when you're going to campaign, how do people know you're running? The most popular way and the most common way, test question, is by self-announcement. You just hold a press conference. I'm running for, again, you're going to hold a press conference only if it's for an election that people care about. If I was to say I'm running for city treasurer of Rockland, I'm not going to hold a press conference because nobody's going to care. Running for president, House of Representatives, a high-profile election, then you'd hold a press conference. Local elections, nobody really cares. So they're not going to hold a press conference. People care, but you know what I mean. How do you reach the voters? So then the politicians, after they make the announcement, then they got to go out and try to reach the voters. You have what's called retail politics, which we're all familiar with. You meet and greet. You go to like a restaurant. You act like you're not an elite. It's like, ooh, I eat at this restaurant, and it's like some diner which that you've never stepped foot in because they don't serve the kind of food that you would eat. But you go there to meet and greet the public and let them know that you are a normal person. Second thing is wholesale politics, and that's when you use the media. That's when you have the debates and you have ads. That's wholesale politics. And that's, again, we see that right now, especially in our political climate. They're getting ready to do the debates. The media, how it's completely changed now. But, think about social media as well and how they use that. And you got ads. We don't see much in the presidential race because, remember, Obama already has California, so why waste your money? And then they use also data from, it could be surveys taken from people that work for them to target certain audience. An example would be if your parents are a registered Republican, they're going to get a lot of Republican leaflets right now during the election and just telling them how to vote on certain issues. Just like if your parents are registered Democrat, same kind of thing. So you get bombarded with a lot of those things that are kind of trying to reach you. If you're kind of a swing voter, moderate, and you're probably registered to one party. If you're independent, you're probably going to get stuff from both people because they're trying to persuade you. So that's, again, how that works. And then you also have the conventions. Think about the conventions we just went through, the Democratic National Convention, where you officially announce, where the delegates officially vote on Romney being the presidential candidate for the Republicans and Obama being the presidential candidate for the Democrats. So that's what the conventions do. So first you have self-announcement, then you reach the voters, and after you've done that, and you're winning in the races, then you go to the convention, then it's going to be finalized. Now you got to look at campaign funds. And this is tricky. It's very interesting about how this stuff is done. We're trying to get money out of politics and the corruption, but all you do is you just create different ways for these lobbyists and these interest groups to persuade politicians through money. But campaign funds, most campaign funds come from personal donors, individual donors. Obama recently referred to them as grassroots donors when he was on in his convention, and I have an article that I'll share with you guys tomorrow, which is just kind of funny, but it's just about, I can give you the gist now, but it was about the Democratic National Convention, all these people that raised money for President Obama, like $8 to $10 million, how they were given VIP treatment, and how they, throughout the town, better rooms, after party tickets, and all this fun stuff. And so politicians like to say that you and I, the grassroots, are really what drives them, but it's not. It's the big-time contributors who are the elite, who have access to politicians because they raise this money. And so even though it says most money comes from here, it does, but we're not treated special. The ones that bring all the money are. Another thing you have now is a political action committee, and you have super PACs. A political action committee, again, we'll go a little bit more into that tomorrow. We're doing activity on what a political action committee is, and I have another slide coming up on what they are. But so this is how they raise money. You get political action committees, money from individual donors, and through the Bipartisan Reform Act, this is also called the McCain-Feingold Act. This bans the use of soft money, which is unregulated money donated to a political party, and the use of issue ad campaigns, just slinging dirty mud by the politicians. Political action committees can make them, and 527s can make them, because that's what comes out of this. They're called 527s because it's a tax loophole. So this bans unregulated soft money in campaigns donated to a political party, which means unregulated means just, again, you're trying to get interest groups, you're trying to get big money out of politics, so you ban the use of soft money, which is donor money. And what happens is you get the emergence of super PACs, which is not on here. So I would write next to political action committee super PACs, and you also have 527 committees. They come out because of this act, and they start influencing politicians now. The Citizens United case in 2010 really changes this, and we'll get into that. We have an activity on that tomorrow. Don't worry about the top part. Define term interest groups, and distinguish these groups from political organizations. And interest groups should be in your vocab, but we'll do this right here. Any interest groups whose members share a common goal and try to promote their interests by influencing government policies and shared decision making. These are special interest groups. An example is the AARP. They're looking out for old people. NRA, that's Jarvis. There's different types of interest groups. And here's an example. You have economic interest groups, United Farm Workers, American Medical Association. Again, they're for various economic concerns. You have citizen groups, their public interest, the ACLU, American Civil Liberties Union. Sierra Club is trying to protect the forest and save the forest. The bug is disgusting, by the way. You have Greenpeace, which is trying to advocate to save the world. You have PETA, which doesn't believe in eating anything. You have them, which is a drug advocacy group. You have Teachers Association, California Teachers Association, which advocates for on the part of teachers, and obviously our interests, and we like to think education's interests, the students' interests. The American Federation of Labor, the AFL and CIO, Congress of Industrial Organizations. And then lobbying is an attempt to influence the policy process by persuading public officials, and that's what lobbyists are. They are lobbying for an interest group. And a lot of these interest groups, you notice that some of them are unions, and that's why unions come under fire, because unions take money from people that are part of that union and they donate to political groups, and whether the people agree with those political groups or not, and then that's where some conflict can come into play. But there's some interest groups. There's some examples of some. If you have any questions on this, we're going to go over a little bit of it tomorrow in class. I have an activity that I'd like us to do. Some more interest groups. Single issue interest groups. The goal is to get the government to act on an overriding issue. Again, you have the NRA, Right to Life, MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving. Remember what they did with federalism and getting the speed limit or the drinking age up to 21? That's a single interest group. And so they did that. You have a public interest group, kind of just went over some of this, but to bring about good policy for society as a whole. The Ralph Nader organizations, the Sierra Club. Ralph Nader was a Green Party in 2000, and Third Party didn't, again.